The Alpha King had thrown every Omega out of his palace, until one exhausted servant fell asleep against his chest, and he refused to let anyone wake him. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and tell me in the comments whether you would trust a king feared by the entire kingdom. Part 1. There was one rule every servant learned before entering Thornmere Palace. Never allow an Omega near King Vaelor Thorn. Vaelor was the strongest Alpha ever born into the royal bloodline. He had ended a rebellion before his 25th birthday, defeated rival armies without losing a single battle, and ruled the Northern Kingdom with terrifying discipline. Yet his greatest weakness was something no enemy knew how to use. Omega sense caused him unbearable pain. Whenever an Omega came too close, Vaelor's control shattered. His head filled with violent pressure, his instincts became impossible to restrain, and his Alpha sense spread so powerfully that even trained soldiers struggled to breathe. No physician understood why. Some believed it was a curse. Others whispered that the king had been poisoned when he was young. Vaelor refused to discuss it. After an incident at a royal gathering nearly ended in tragedy, every Omega was removed from the palace. New servants were examined before being hired, and anyone hiding their secondary gender faced imprisonment. That was why Soren lived every day in fear. Soren was 23 years old, and had worked in the palace laundry for 7 months. Everyone believed he was a beta. Only Soren knew the truth. Every morning before sunrise, he swallowed a bitter suppressant and placed a scent-blocking patch beneath his uniform. The medicine was expensive, but without it, his natural Omega scent would expose him within minutes. He did not enjoy deceiving the crown. He simply had no choice. His family's small inn had burned down the previous winter. His parents had died years earlier, and the few relatives he had refused to help him. Palace work gave him food, shelter, and enough wages to rebuild his life someday. His plan was to remain invisible. Work quietly. Save money. Leave before anyone discovered what he was. For 7 months, the plan succeeded. Then the medicine stopped working. It happened during the coldest night of winter. A storm surrounded the palace, burying the courtyards beneath snow and forcing most servants to remain in their quarters. Soren had just finished carrying fresh sheets to the northern wing when the chief steward appeared at the end of the corridor. Soren. Soren immediately bowed. Yes, sir. The king dismissed his attendants again. Take these documents to his private study. Soren looked at the sealed folder in the steward's hands. The private study stood inside the king's restricted wing. I am assigned to the laundry rooms. You are also the nearest available servant. Soren felt his heartbeat quicken. Could a guard deliver them? The king ordered silence. Guards wear armor. You wear soft shoes. The steward pushed the folder into his hands before Soren could protest. Place it on his desk and leave. Do not speak unless he speaks first. Soren nodded because refusing would create questions he could not answer. The northern corridor was colder than the rest of the palace. Tall windows shook beneath the force of the wind, and the candles along the walls flickered as he passed. 2 guards stood outside the king's study. They opened the doors without looking at him twice. Soren stepped inside. The room was enormous but nearly dark. A single fire burned beside a long black couch. Maps and military reports covered the desk, yet the king was not sitting behind it. Vaelor stood near the window with his back to the room. Even without his crown, he was unmistakable. He was taller than Soren had expected, dressed in a dark shirt with the sleeves pushed to his elbows. His black hair fell loosely across his forehead, and one hand pressed against the side of his head. He looked exhausted. Soren silently crossed the room and placed the documents on the desk. He had almost reached the door when Vaelor spoke. Stop! Soren froze. The king turned. His gray eyes settled on Soren with such intensity that every thought disappeared from his mind. You are not one of my attendants. No, your majesty. I work in the laundry rooms. Vaelor studied him. Come closer. Soren's fingers tightened around the edge of his sleeve. He could feel the suppressant weakening. A trace of his natural scent had begun escaping through the patch. It was subtle, carrying the clean sweetness of white tea and fresh rain, but an alpha like Vaelor would notice it. I should return to my duties. That was not a request. Soren forced himself to take 2 steps forward. Vaelor's expression changed. His eyes narrowed. What are you hiding? Nothing, Your Majesty. Vaelor approached him. Soren stepped back until the edge of the desk pressed against his waist. The king stopped directly in front of him. Then he inhaled. Soren's blood turned cold. You are an Omega. The words were quiet, but they struck harder than a shout. Soren lowered his head. I can explain. You entered my palace under a false identity. I needed work. You broke royal law. I know. Vaelor lifted one hand. Soren closed his eyes, expecting the king to call the guards. Instead, Vaelor's fingers closed gently around his wrist. Silence filled the room. Nothing happened. No violent pressure. No uncontrolled alpha scent. No rage. Vaelor stared at Soren, as though he had just witnessed something impossible. The pain that had haunted him for years was fading. Soren felt the change too. The king's presence should have overwhelmed him, yet it surrounded him with unexpected warmth. The fear inside his chest slowly loosened. Vaelor moved closer. What did you do to me? Nothing. For the first time in years, my head is quiet. Soren did not know how to answer. The storm struck the windows again. Soren swayed slightly. The failed suppressant, the long day, and the warmth of the fire had left him dizzy. Vaelor caught him before he fell. I am sorry, Soren whispered. I only need a moment. Vaelor guided him toward the couch. Soren intended to sit for a few seconds. Instead, his eyes closed the moment his head touched the king's chest. When the guards entered later, they found the hidden Omega asleep in Vaelor's arms. One guard stepped forward. Vaelor's alpha scent immediately filled the room. Do not wake him, the king ordered. But Your Majesty, he is an Omega. Vaelor tightened his arm around Soren. I know. End of Part 1. Part 2. Soren woke to the sound of a steady heartbeat beneath his ear. For several seconds, he did not understand where he was. Then he opened his eyes. His cheek rested against King Vaelor's chest. One of the king's arms remained around his waist, holding him securely against the dark fabric of his shirt. The fire had burned low, the storm still struck the windows, and 2 guards stood frozen near the doorway. Soren stopped breathing. He pushed himself upright so quickly that dizziness swept through him. Your Majesty. Vaelor tightened his hand around Soren's arm before he could fall. Slowly. Soren stared at him. The king's voice was calm. Too calm. Everyone in the palace knew Vaelor could not tolerate an Omega standing within the same room. Yet Soren had fallen asleep against him, and the king had allowed it. No. He had protected him. Soren looked toward the guards. Their expressions made the danger clear. They knew what he was now. His secret was over. I am sorry, Soren said. I did not mean to fall asleep. You fainted from exhaustion. I should leave. You are not leaving. The words struck Soren with more force than anger would have. Vaelor turned to the captain. Close the doors. The captain hesitated. Your Majesty, the council must be informed. The council will be informed when I decide. But he entered the palace under a false identity. Vaelor's eyes hardened. I am aware. The captain lowered his head and closed the doors. Soren stood beside the couch, trying to hide the trembling in his hands. He knew the punishment for deceiving the crown. He had seen servants dismissed for far smaller crimes. Prison would be the merciful outcome. Vaelor walked toward the desk and poured water into a glass. Drink. Soren accepted it carefully. The king watched him finish every drop. What suppressant were you using? Soren's fingers tightened around the glass. I do not know the name. That is a lie. Soren lowered his gaze. Vaelor stepped closer. I am not asking to punish you. I need to know why it failed. It was called Silver Shade. The king's expression darkened. That medicine was banned 2 years ago. Soren looked up. The apothecary said it was safe. It damages the heart when used for long periods. Fear moved through Soren. He had taken it almost every day for 7 months. Vaelor saw the answer in his face. How long? Soren hesitated. 7 months. The glass shattered in Vaelor's hand. Soren flinched. Blood appeared across the king's palm, but Vaelor did not seem to notice. You have been poisoning yourself for 7 months to work here. I needed the position. You could have died. I had nowhere else to go. The anger in Vaelor's face disappeared. For one brief moment, Soren saw something else. Guilt. The king turned away. Call the royal physician. The captain moved toward the doors. Soren immediately stepped back. No. Everyone looked at him. Soren's voice weakened. The physician will report me. He will report to me. He will examine my records. He will discover everything. Vaelor faced him again. Everything? Soren wished he had remained silent. The room became still. Vaelor approached until only one step separated them. What else are you hiding? Nothing that threatens you. That was not my question. Soren could feel his natural sense strengthening. Without the suppressant, the soft fragrance of white tea and rain spread through the room. The guards shifted uneasily. Vaelor did not. He moved closer instead. His shoulders relaxed as though Soren's scent were easing a pain no one else could see. Soren noticed it. You feel better near me. Vaelor's gaze sharpened. So do you. Soren could not deny it. The king's scent had changed since he woke. It no longer felt heavy or dangerous. It carried cedar and winter smoke, surrounding Soren with a strange sense of safety. That frightened him more than anger. Vaelor had been dangerous from a distance. This calm version of him was impossible to understand. The physician arrived 10 minutes later. Dr. Marrow was an elderly beta with silver hair and a serious expression. He checked Soren's pulse, examined his eyes, and asked several questions about the suppressant. Vaelor remained beside them through the entire examination. Finally, the physician stepped away. He is fortunate. His heartbeat is irregular, but I do not believe the damage is permanent. Soren released a breath. He needs rest, Dr. Marrow continued. No suppressants for at least 1 month. The captain stared at him. If he stops taking them, the whole palace will know. Vaelor answered before Soren could. Then the palace will be told he is under my protection. Soren turned sharply. Your Majesty, that will create questions. It will stop anyone from touching you. I do not need protection. You entered my palace because you had nowhere else to go. You poisoned yourself to remain hidden. You fell unconscious after one difficult night. Vaelor's voice lowered. You need more protection than you realize. Soren's face warmed with humiliation. I can leave the palace. No. The answer came too quickly. Even Vaelor seemed surprised by it. Dr. Marrow looked between them. There is something else. Vaelor's attention shifted to him. The physician spoke carefully. Your Majesty's condition has improved since this Omega entered the room. The captain frowned. What does that mean? It means Soren's scent is not triggering the king's illness. Dr. Marrow paused. It may be suppressing it. Silence followed. Soren felt every gaze turn toward him. Vaelor's eyes became unreadable. The physician continued. I recommend controlled observation. They should remain near each other for several days. Soren nearly dropped the glass. No. Vaelor looked at him. You would rather be imprisoned? That is not what I said. You broke royal law. Soren's face went pale. Vaelor stepped closer. His tone softened. Remain near me willingly, and no charge will be brought against you. Soren understood the trap immediately. It was not imprisonment. But it was not freedom either. How near? Vaelor's eyes lowered briefly to the place where Soren had slept against his chest. Close enough for the pain to stay gone. Before Soren could answer, someone struck the doors from the other side. A council messenger entered, breathing hard. Your Majesty, forgive the interruption. Vaelor turned. What happened? The messenger looked at Soren before speaking. The royal council already knows an Omega was found in your private chamber. Soren's blood ran cold. The messenger swallowed. They are gathering in the throne room. Vaelor's expression became dangerous. And? They are demanding the Omega be surrendered immediately. Vaelor moved in front of Soren. His alpha scent filled the room with enough power to force every guard to lower his head. Then they are about to learn, he said, that they do not give orders to their king. End of Part 2. Part 3. The throne room had never felt colder. Soren stood one step behind King Vaelor as the great doors opened before them. Every member of the royal council was already waiting. 12 nobles sat along the dark marble table beneath the banners of Thornmere. Their expressions ranged from anger to suspicion, but none looked surprised to see Soren. News had spread faster than the winter storm. Vaelor entered without slowing. Soren followed because the king had ordered him to remain close. The moment they crossed the doorway, several council members noticed the distance between them. Or the lack of it. Soren was close enough to touch Vaelor's back. Lord Harvin, the oldest council member, rose from his chair. Your Majesty, we requested that the Omega be detained. Vaelor walked to the head of the table. I received your request. And yet he is standing beside you. Yes. Harvin's jaw tightened. Soren kept his gaze lowered. He could feel the hostility in the room. Most of the council members were alphas, and without his suppressant, his natural scent was impossible to hide. White tea and rain drifted through the chamber. Several men shifted uncomfortably. Vaelor noticed. His alpha presence spread through the room in a silent warning. Every movement stopped. Lady Seraphine Morel remained seated near the center of the table. Unlike the others, she was a beta, and one of the kingdom's most respected legal advisors. She studied Soren carefully. Is it true that he entered royal service under a false classification? It is, Vaelor said. Then the law is clear. The law serves the crown. The law protects the crown. Vaelor placed both hands on the table. And I am telling you he is not a threat. Lord Harvin looked at Soren. You cannot know that after one night. I know he calms the condition that your physicians failed to understand for years. A murmur passed through the council. Soren's eyes lifted. Vaelor had not intended to reveal that so quickly. Harvin stared at the king. What condition? Vaelor said nothing. Dr. Marrow stepped forward from the side of the room. His Majesty's reactions to Omega Sense were never caused by hatred or ordinary instinct. They were symptoms of a physical illness. Another council member leaned forward. You claimed the cause was unknown. It remains unknown, Marrow replied. But Soren's presence reduces the symptoms. Lord Harvin's expression changed. Not surprise. Calculation. Soren saw it immediately. The council was no longer looking at him like a criminal. They were looking at him like an object with value. Lady Seraphine folded her hands. How significant is the improvement? The king has experienced constant headaches and periods of instinctive instability for years, Marrow said. Both disappeared when Soren came near him. Temporarily, Harvin said. Perhaps. Then this Omega should be examined under controlled conditions. Soren's shoulders stiffened. Vaelor's voice became quiet. He is not a laboratory subject. No one suggested harming him. You suggested taking control of him. For the safety of the kingdom. Vaelor straightened. The kingdom is safest when its council remembers its position. The room fell silent. Soren looked toward Vaelor. The king's face showed no emotion, but Soren could see the tension in his shoulders. The pain had not returned yet, though the council's pressure was testing his control. Soren moved half a step closer. Vaelor noticed. His breathing eased. Lord Harvin noticed too. That frightened Soren. The older noble's eyes narrowed as if he had just discovered the answer to a question no one else had asked. Your Majesty, Harvin said. May I ask the servant something directly? No. Soren looked at the king. It is all right. Vaelor turned toward him. You do not have to answer them. If I say nothing, they will assume the worst. They will do that regardless. Soren faced the council. What do you wish to ask? Harvin studied him. Why did you hide your identity? I needed work. Many places employ omegas. Not places that paid enough to survive. And you selected the one palace where omegas were forbidden. Soren felt heat rise beneath his collar. I selected the first place that accepted me. Convenient. Vaelor's hand struck the table. The sharp sound echoed through the chamber. That is enough. Harvin did not sit down. Your Majesty, his story may be true. It may also have been prepared before he entered the palace. Soren's stomach tightened. You believe I planned this? I believe coincidence should be examined. Vaelor stepped away from the table. The air became heavy. Harvin finally lowered his head, but not before Soren saw satisfaction flash in his eyes. He wanted Vaelor angry. He wanted the king to lose control in front of the council. Soren reached out before thinking and touched Vaelor's sleeve. The effect was immediate. Vaelor's alpha scent weakened. His shoulders lowered. Every person in the room saw it. Harvin's face became still. That small touch had proven more than Dr. Marrow's explanation ever could. Soren withdrew his hand. Vaelor caught it. Not tightly. Just enough to stop him. You remain under royal protection, Vaelor said, looking at the council. No interrogation. No confinement. No testing without his consent. Lady Seraphine spoke carefully. And where will he stay? Vaelor looked at Soren. In the northern wing. Soren's eyes widened. That is the king's private residence, Harvin said. I know where I live. The servants will talk. Let them. The court will assume he is your chosen Omega. This time the silence felt different. Soren's heartbeat became painfully loud. Vaelor's fingers remained around his hand. He could release him. He did not. I do not care what the court assumes, the king said. Harvin slowly sat down. Soren knew the argument was over. But the expression on the older noble's face warned him that something else had begun. Later that night, Soren was taken to a guest chamber beside Vaelor's rooms. 2 guards stood outside his door. A tray of food waited on the table, along with new clothes and medicine from Dr. Marrow. Soren should have felt safe. Instead, he searched the room. Someone had already been inside. One drawer remained slightly open. The window latch was scratched. Then he saw the folded piece of paper beneath his pillow. Only one sentence had been written across it. Leave the king before sunrise, or the truth about your family will be revealed. Soren read the words twice. His hands began to shake. No one in the palace was supposed to know who his family had been. No one was supposed to know what had happened before the fire. A knock sounded at the connecting door. Vaelor's voice came from the other side. Soren, open the door. Soren crushed the note inside his fist. For the first time since entering Thornmere Palace, he was more afraid of telling the king the truth than of hiding it. End of Part 3. Part 4. Soren stared at the connecting door, while the warning note crumpled inside his hand. Soren! Vaelor's voice came again. This time it was sharper. Soren forced himself to move. He slipped the note into the pocket of his uniform, and opened the door. Vaelor stood on the other side wearing a dark robe over his shirt. His hair was still damp, and without the crown or royal coat, he looked almost ordinary. Almost. His eyes immediately moved to Soren's face. What happened? Nothing. Vaelor entered without waiting for permission. Soren stepped back. The king looked around the chamber, taking in the open drawer and the damaged window latch. His expression changed. Someone was here. Soren said nothing. Vaelor turned toward him. What did they take? Nothing. What did they leave? The question struck too close. Soren tried to hide his reaction, but Vaelor saw it. The king held out his hand. Give it to me. I do not know what you mean. You are a poor liar. Soren looked away. Vaelor moved closer. The calming effect between them began at once. Soren's heartbeat slowed even as his fear remained. That note concerns me, Vaelor said. It concerns my family. Then it concerns you. That does not make it your responsibility. Vaelor's jaw tightened. You are staying inside my private wing because someone may be targeting you. I was targeted long before I came here. The words escaped before Soren could stop them. Vaelor became still. What does that mean? Soren pressed his lips together. He had survived 7 months in the palace by telling no one the whole truth. Now the king was standing close enough to hear every uneven breath. Vaelor lowered his voice. Show me the note. Soren knew refusing would only make him more suspicious. He pulled the paper from his pocket and placed it in Vaelor's hand. The king read it once. Then again. His alpha scent changed. The air became colder and heavier. Soren touched his wrist. Control yourself. Vaelor looked down at Soren's fingers. The pressure in the room eased. Someone entered a guarded royal chamber and threatened you, Vaelor said. I am controlled. That does not look controlled. You have not seen me uncontrolled. Soren believed him. Vaelor carried the note toward the fire but did not burn it. He examined the paper beneath the candlelight. No seal. No signature. They wanted it to look untraceable. It is palace paper. Soren's eyes narrowed. How can you tell? The lower edge has a small silver thread. Only council offices use it. The warning had come from someone with access to the royal council. Soren thought of Lord Harvin. His calculating stare. The way he had questioned Soren's arrival. Vaelor must have reached the same conclusion. Harvin, Soren whispered. Perhaps. You do not believe it was him? I believe the obvious answer is often placed in front of us by someone hiding behind it. Vaelor folded the note carefully. What truth are they threatening to reveal? Soren's chest tightened. My family owned an inn. That is what you told me. It was true. But incomplete. Soren walked toward the window. Snow covered the gardens beyond the glass, hiding every path beneath untouched white. The fire was not an accident, he said. Vaelor remained silent. Soren continued before he lost the courage. My father borrowed money from men connected to the southern trade houses. He believed he could repay them after the winter season. He could not. No. Soren's voice became quieter. They demanded the inn instead. My father refused. Vaelor's face hardened. So they burned it. Soren nodded. I was working at a nearby estate that night. By the time I returned, nothing remained. And your family? My younger brother had already moved away for work. My father was inside. The silence that followed felt heavier than grief. Vaelor stepped closer. Why did you hide this? Because the trade house responsible supplies half the palace. Vaelor's expression turned dangerous. Which one? Soren hesitated. House Varen. Vaelor looked toward the note. Lord Harvin's sister was married to the head of House Varen. The threat was no longer only about Soren. It reached directly into the council. You believe Harvin knows, Vaelor said. I believe he may have helped protect them. Do you have proof? Only my father's account book. Where is it? Soren's eyes lowered. Hidden outside the capital. Vaelor studied him. If that book contains evidence of illegal debts, bribery, or murder, they will kill to find it. That is why I never returned for it. You should have told me. You are the king. House Varen funds your army. My army does not excuse murder. Soren turned. For the first time, the anger in Vaelor's voice was not frightening. It felt protective. That made it dangerous in a different way. A sudden crash sounded in the corridor. Vaelor moved in front of Soren, before either of them could think. The door opened and one of the guards stumbled inside. Blood covered the side of his face. Your Majesty, he gasped. The second guard is missing. Vaelor drew a blade from beneath his robe. Soren stared at him. You sleep armed. I am king. Another sound came from the servant passage behind the wall. Someone was inside it. The hidden panel moved. Vaelor pushed Soren behind him. A masked figure entered the chamber holding a narrow knife. He did not attack Vaelor. He went directly for Soren. Vaelor caught the attacker's wrist and drove him against the wall. The knife fell, but the masked man reached inside his coat. Soren saw the small glass vial before Vaelor did. Poison! The attacker threw it toward the fire. Vaelor released him and turned away as the vial shattered. Dark smoke exploded through the room. Soren coughed and lost sight of everything. A hand closed around his arm. For one terrified second, he thought the attacker had him. Then Vaelor pulled him against his chest and covered Soren's face with his robe. "Stay with me." The king carried him through the connecting door. Behind them, guards rushed into the room. When they reached safety, Soren looked back. The masked attacker was gone. Only one thing remained on the floor. A silver ring marked with the crest of House Vaelor. Vaelor saw it too. His arm tightened around Soren. "This is no longer a warning," the king said. Soren looked at the smoke spreading beneath the door. "No." Vaelor's gray eyes turned cold. "It is a declaration of war." End of Part 4. Part 5. The northern wing was sealed before midnight. Every servant was removed. Every corridor was searched. Every guard assigned to King Vaelor was replaced with soldiers from his personal command. Soren remained inside the king's chamber, while Dr. Marrow examined him for signs of poisoning. The smoke had left his throat raw, but the physician found no lasting damage. Vaelor stood near the window throughout the examination. He had not changed his clothes. A dark stain marked one sleeve where the attacker's blade had cut him during the struggle. Soren noticed it only after Dr. Marrow left. "You are injured." "It is nothing." That is what people say when they do not want to be examined. Vaelor glanced at him. "You nearly inhaled poison and you are worried about my arm. You placed it between me and a knife." "I would do it again." The answer came without hesitation. Soren looked away before Vaelor could see how deeply those words affected him. The king removed his damaged shirt and sat beside the fire. The cut was longer than Soren had expected, running across the upper part of his arm. Soren took the medical box from the table. "Let me clean it. I have survived worse." "That does not make this safe." Vaelor watched him kneel beside the chair. "You give orders easily for a servant. You ignore advice easily for a king." For the first time that night, Vaelor almost smiled. Soren cleaned the wound carefully. His fingers trembled at first, but the king remained still beneath his touch. The room felt strangely quiet. Too quiet for two people who had survived an attack only an hour earlier. Vaelor's scent surrounded Soren with cedar and smoke. It should have overwhelmed him, yet it made the tension in his body fade. Soren tied the bandage. "Finished." Vaelor did not move his arm away. "Your scent is stronger." Soren froze. "I have not used suppressants." "I know. Does it hurt you?" "No." Vaelor's gaze remained on him. "It is the only scent that does not." Soren stood and placed the medical supplies aside. "That does not explain why." "No. It may be dangerous." Vaelor's expression darkened. "To whom?" "To both of us." Before the king could answer, Captain Dren entered through the main doors. He carried the silver ring found after the attack inside a cloth pouch. "We searched the palace," the captain said. "The intruder used the servants' tunnels to escape." "And the missing guard?" Vaelor asked. "Found unconscious near the lower kitchens. He remembers being struck from behind." Vaelor looked toward the ring. "Was it genuine?" "Yes, Your Majesty. It belongs to the inner circle of House Vaelor." Soren felt his stomach tighten. Captain Dren continued. "There is another problem. Lord Harvin claims the ring was stolen from his office." "Of course he does," Vaelor said. "He has demanded an official investigation. He will receive one." Soren looked at the king. "You cannot accuse him without stronger evidence." Vaelor's eyes turned cold. "He threatened you and sent a killer into my chambers." "We cannot prove he did either. He benefits from both." "That is suspicion, not proof." Vaelor stood. Why are you defending him? I am not. Then stop speaking as though his safety matters more than yours. Soren stiffened. This is not only about my safety. If you arrest a council lord without evidence, the other houses may turn against you. Vaelor stepped closer. I will not allow politics to protect the man who tried to kill you. And I will not become the reason your kingdom falls into conflict. You believe I would lose control of my kingdom over one council member? I believe you are angry enough to try. The captain lowered his gaze, wisely pretending not to hear them. Vaelor stared at Soren. Then he exhaled slowly. The pressure in the room eased. You are right. Soren had not expected those words. Vaelor turned to Captain Dren. Harvin is not to be arrested. Place him under observation. Search his office only with Lady Seraphine present. Yes, Your Majesty. Send riders to every property controlled by House Varon. No one enters or leaves without being recorded. Captain Dren bowed and departed. Soren looked at Vaelor. You listened to me. You sounded disappointed. I am surprised. You should not be. You are not known for changing your decisions. You are not known for surviving assassination attempts. Soren crossed his arms. That was not an answer. Vaelor moved toward the table and unfolded a map of the capital. Your father's account book may be the only evidence strong enough to connect Harvin to House Varon's crimes. Soren became silent. Vaelor pointed toward the southern road. You said it was hidden outside the capital. In an abandoned chapel near my family's inn. How far? Half a day by horse. We leave before sunrise. Soren stared at him. We? You are the only one who knows where it is. You cannot leave the palace during an investigation. I can do whatever is necessary to expose treason. And if the attack was intended to draw you outside? Vaelor met his gaze. Then we will let them believe it worked. Soren understood immediately. You want to set a trap. I want our enemy to move before he realizes we are watching. The plan was dangerous. It was also their best chance. Before Soren could answer, Lady Seraphine entered without waiting to be announced. Her face was pale. I found something in the council records. She placed a sealed document on the table. Vaelor broke the seal. His expression changed as he read. What is it? Soren asked. Vaelor handed him the document. It was an order authorizing the removal of Soren's father from his property. The signature at the bottom belonged to Lord Harvin. The date was 3 days before the inn burned. Soren's hands tightened around the page. He knew. Lady Seraphine nodded. There is more. The order was approved under a private royal command. Vaelor looked up sharply. I never approved this. I know, she said. Then whose seal was used? Lady Seraphine hesitated. The seal belonged to the former queen. Vaelor went completely still. His mother had been dead for 8 years. Soren looked from the document to the king. Someone had not only protected House Varon. Someone had been using the royal family's authority for years. Vaelor folded the paper once. We leave tonight. Lady Seraphine stepped forward. Your Majesty, there is one more thing. She removed a second page from her coat. The same false seal was used on another order. Vaelor took it. Soren watched the color disappear from his face. What does it say? Vaelor did not answer immediately. When he finally looked at Soren, the anger in his eyes had been replaced by something far worse. Fear. It ordered the royal physicians to begin treating me with a new medicine when I was 16. Soren understood before anyone said it. The king's reaction to omegas had never been a curse. It had been created. Someone had poisoned Vaelor for years. And Soren's scent was somehow undoing it. End of Part 5. Part 6. Vaelor read the medical order 3 times. Each time, his expression became colder. The document had been signed when he was 16, only weeks after his mother's death. It ordered the royal physicians to administer a daily medicine called Elverin, and described it as a treatment for stress caused by early alpha development. Vaelor remembered the bitter liquid. He had taken it for almost 9 years. His first violent reaction to an Omega had begun 6 months after the treatment started. Soren stood beside him, staring at the false royal seal. They created your condition. It appears so. Why would anyone do that? Vaelor placed the document on the table. To isolate me. Lady Seraphine nodded slowly. A king who cannot tolerate Omegas cannot form alliances with Omega noble families. He cannot attend certain gatherings. He cannot choose a partner freely. Captain Dren stepped closer. And every public incident made His Majesty appear unstable. Vaelor's jaw tightened. The poisoning had not been intended to kill him. It had been designed to control him. Someone had spent years limiting where he could go, who could approach him, and how the kingdom viewed him. Soren looked at the medical order again. Who had access to the former queen's seal? Her private secretary, Seraphine said. 2 advisors and the master of the royal archive. Where are they now? 1 advisor died years ago. The secretary disappeared shortly after the queen's funeral. The archive master still works inside the palace. Vaelor turned to Dren. Bring him to me. The captain left immediately. Soren watched Vaelor walk toward the fire. The king looked calm, but his scent had grown sharp enough to fill the room. Soren approached him carefully. You need to control your breathing. Vaelor gave him a hard look. I have been poisoned for half my life. I know. My mother's seal was used to do it. I know. Then do not ask me to remain calm. Soren stopped directly in front of him. I am asking because anger is what they expect from you. Vaelor said nothing. Soren placed one hand over the king's wrist. The effect moved through them at once. The pressure in the room weakened. Vaelor closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, the rage was still there, but it no longer controlled him. You should be afraid of me when I am like this, he said. I was. Soren slowly released his wrist. Now I know the difference between your anger and your cruelty. Vaelor studied him. And what is the difference? You have never been cruel to me. The words remained between them. Vaelor moved half a step closer. Soren felt the warmth of his body, and the steady pull of his scent. For one dangerous moment, the attack, the council, and the hidden enemy disappeared. Then the doors opened. Captain Dren returned alone. The archive master is gone. Vaelor turned sharply. When? His rooms were emptied less than an hour ago. A stable worker saw him leaving through the western gate. He was warned, Seraphine said. Vaelor looked toward the sealed windows. Then someone inside this room's circle is being watched. Soren's stomach tightened. Only a small number of people knew about the documents. The king. Soren. Seraphine. Dren. Dr. Marrow. And the guards outside. Anyone among them could have been followed. Or one of them could have spoken. We should not leave for the chapel now, Seraphine said. The enemy may already know. That is exactly why we must go, Vaelor replied. If they want the account book, they will follow us. Soren looked at the king. You still intend to use us as bait. I intend to end this before more people die. Those are not different things. Vaelor's gaze softened slightly. You will remain behind. No. Soren. You cannot find the book without me. You can describe the location. And if there are traps near the chapel? Vaelor became still. Soren continued. My father suspected someone was watching him. He created a false hiding place in case the inn was searched. You never mentioned that. You never asked. Seraphine almost smiled. Vaelor did not. Fine, he said. You come with me. Captain Dren unfolded a map. We can use the old hunting road. House Varen's men will expect us on the southern route. No royal carriage, Vaelor said. For guards only. Seraphine shook her head. That is not enough. A larger escort will attract attention. And a smaller one will make the king easier to kill. Soren looked at the map. There is another path. Everyone turned toward him. A narrow road behind the abandoned mill. It leads through the forest and reaches the chapel from the east. Dren examined the route. It is not marked. Local workers used it years ago. Vaelor folded the map. We leave within the hour. The journey began before the palace bells announced midnight. Vaelor and Soren rode beneath plain dark cloaks. Dren and 3 trusted guards followed them at a distance. Snow covered the road and silenced the horses' steps. For the first hour, no one spoke. Soren had not ridden since losing the inn, and the cold quickly reached his hands. He tried to hide the trembling, but Vaelor noticed. Without warning, the king moved his horse closer. "Give me your hand. I can manage." That was not the question. Soren reluctantly reached toward him. Vaelor removed one glove and wrapped his warm fingers around Soren's cold hand. Soren stared at him. "You cannot ride like this. I have fought battles with worse disadvantages. This is not a battle." Vaelor looked toward the dark forest. "It may become one." They reached the abandoned mill shortly before dawn. The building had collapsed on one side, and the wooden wheel stood frozen beneath a layer of ice. Dren raised one hand. Everyone stopped. Fresh hoofprints crossed the snow. Soren counted them. At least 8 riders. "They arrived before us," he whispered. Vaelor drew his sword. "Stay behind me." Soren looked toward the trees. A faint light moved between them. Then another. Torches. Men stepped onto the road from both directions, blocking the path ahead and behind. Their faces were covered. The leader rode forward wearing a silver ring marked with the crest of House Varen. "You should have remained in the palace," he called. Vaelor positioned his horse in front of Soren. "You should have chosen a better king to betray." The masked leader laughed. "We did not betray you. Your Majesty." He lifted a crossbow and aimed directly at Soren. "We created you." The bolt flew. Vaelor moved faster than anyone expected. He pulled Soren from his horse and turned his own body between him and the weapon. The bolt struck. Vaelor made no sound. But when Soren looked down, blood was already spreading across the king's chest. End of Part 6. Part 7. Vaelor fell against Soren before the sound of the crossbow faded. For 1 second, Soren could not move. The king's weight dragged him into the snow, and warm blood spread across Soren's hands as he tried to hold him upright. "Vaelor." The king's eyes remained open, but his breathing had become shallow. Captain Dren shouted an order. The guards formed a shield around them as masked riders rushed from the trees. Steel struck steel. Horses screamed and scattered across the frozen road. Soren barely heard any of it. He stared at the bolt buried beneath Vaelor's collarbone. It had missed the heart. But the dark color spreading through the blood told him the weapon carried something worse than an ordinary wound. "Poison," Soren whispered. Vaelor caught his wrist. "Do not pull it out. You are bleeding. The bolt may be slowing it." Soren's hands shook. "You should not have protected me." Vaelor's mouth tightened. "I warned you I would do it again." Another attacker broke through the guards. Soren saw him too late. The man raised a sword, but Vaelor forced himself upright and drove his blade into the attacker's side. The effort cost him. He collapsed again. Dren reached them and struck down a second man. "We need to move." "The king cannot ride," Soren said. "There is shelter inside the mill." 2 guards lifted Vaelor while Dren cleared the path. Soren followed them through the broken doors of the abandoned building. The mill was dark and freezing. Snow had entered through the collapsed roof, and old machinery covered the floor. Dren pushed a wooden cabinet against the entrance, while the surviving guards took positions beside the windows. Outside, the attackers regrouped. Soren helped lower Vaelor beside a stone wall. The king's face had lost its color. "Open his cloak," Dren ordered. Soren pulled back the fabric. The bolt had entered high in Vaelor's chest. Black lines were already spreading beneath the skin around the wound. Dren's expression became grim. "I have seen this poison before. Can it be treated?" "The antidote must be given quickly." "Do we have it?" Dren looked away. "No. Soren felt the room shift around him. Vaelor's fingers closed weakly around his sleeve. Listen to me. No. Soren. You are not dying in this place. Vaelor almost smiled. That sounded like an order. It is. Soren searched the medical pouch attached to Dren's belt. Bandages, alcohol, needles and ordinary medicine filled it. Nothing marked as an antidote. What poison is it? Soren asked. Nightthorn, Dren replied. It attacks an alpha's heart and scent glands. Soren looked at the dark lines beneath Vaelor's skin. Why would they use that? To make his death resemble the collapse of his condition. The truth struck them all at once. The conspirators had created Vaelor's illness. Now they intended to let it become the explanation for his death. A crossbow bolt crashed through the window. One guard fell. Dren moved toward him, leaving Soren alone beside Vaelor. The king's breathing became uneven. His alpha scent filled the mill, but it no longer carried strength. The cedar and smoke had weakened beneath the poison. Soren leaned closer. Vaelor's pain eased whenever they touched. Perhaps his scent could do more than calm him. Dr. Marrow had said Soren's presence reduced the symptoms caused by the old poison. This was a different substance. But it had been designed to attack the same part of Vaelor's body. Soren removed the scent-blocking patch still attached beneath his collar. His natural scent spread through the mill. White tea and rain. Vaelor's eyes opened slightly. What are you doing? Trying something. It may hurt you. I do not care. I do. Soren placed both hands against Vaelor's face and pressed his forehead to the king's. Then survive long enough to argue with me. Vaelor's hand rose and rested against Soren's waist. The connection between them changed. Soren had felt calm around him before. This was stronger. A sharp warmth moved through Soren's chest, followed by a pulling sensation that made him gasp. Vaelor's alpha scent wrapped around him, while Soren's own scent seemed to move toward the wound. The black lines beneath Vaelor's skin stopped spreading. Dren looked back. What is happening? Soren could not answer. Pain entered his own chest. He nearly pulled away, but Vaelor held him. No, the king whispered. Stop. Soren ignored him. The warmth became unbearable. Then Vaelor's body jerked. Dark blood escaped from the wound and soaked into the bandage. The black lines began fading. Dren dropped to his knees beside them. The poison is leaving his blood. Soren's vision blurred. He understood too late that he was not destroying the poison. He was drawing part of it into himself. Vaelor realized it at the same moment. He pushed Soren away. Soren fell backward, coughing. A thin black line appeared beneath the skin of his wrist. Vaelor stared at it in horror. What did you do? I kept you alive. You transferred the poison. Not all of it. Vaelor tried to stand, but weakness forced him back. His fear was more powerful than his anger. You will not die for me. Soren looked toward the blocked entrance as the attackers struck it from outside. We can discuss that after we survive. Dren stood. The eastern wall leads to the old water tunnel. It may take us beneath the forest. Vaelor looked at Soren. Can you walk? Soren forced himself to his feet. Yes. It was a lie. The poison burned through his arm, but he refused to let the king see how quickly it was spreading. The guards broke through the wall and opened the narrow tunnel. Dren entered first. Soren followed, but Vaelor caught his hand before he could disappear into the darkness. No more secrets, the king said. Soren looked at their joined hands. Then you first. Vaelor's expression changed. Before Soren could ask why, the king removed a small metal object from inside his coat. It was a key. The same symbol carved into Soren's father's account book had been engraved across it. Soren stared at him. Where did you get that? Vaelor's voice became quiet. From my mother's private chamber. The mill doors began to break behind them. Vaelor pulled Soren into the tunnel. Your family and mine were connected long before either of us knew. End of Part 7. Part 8. The tunnel beneath the mill was narrow enough to force them into a single line. Captain Dren led the way with one guard carrying a torch behind him. Vaelor followed with one arm around Soren's waist, refusing to let him walk alone. The poison had stopped spreading through Vaelor's body. It had not stopped inside Soren. The black line beneath his wrist had reached his elbow. Each step made his chest burn. Vaelor noticed every time his breathing changed. "You are getting worse." "I am still walking." That was not an answer. Soren looked at the key in Vaelor's hand. "Tell me about the symbol." Vaelor was silent for several seconds. "My mother used it on documents she did not trust the council to see." "And why was it carved into my father's account book?" "I do not know." Soren's legs weakened. Vaelor caught him before he hit the stone wall. "That is enough. Dren, stop." "We cannot," Soren said. "They will find the entrance." Dren looked back from the darkness. The tunnel divides ahead. One path reaches the chapel. The other leads to the old river gate. Soren forced himself upright. "The chapel." Vaelor tightened his hold. "You are in no condition to continue. The antidote may be hidden with the book." Everyone looked at him. Soren swallowed against the pain. "My father wrote about House Varen's medicines. He believed they were moving poison through the southern trade routes. If Nightthorn was one of them, he may have hidden a sample or a treatment." Vaelor's expression hardened. "You knew this?" "I knew he kept medical records. I did not know why." Dren raised the torch. "Then the chapel is our only chance." They reached the split in the tunnel minutes later. The right passage descended toward water. The left rose beneath old stone steps. Soren recognized the marks cut into the wall. "My father made those." Vaelor supported him as they climbed. The passage ended beneath a broken altar. Dren pushed against the stone until it shifted. Cold morning light entered the tunnel. The abandoned chapel stood exactly as Soren remembered it. The roof had collapsed over one side. Snow covered the floor, and burned wooden benches remained where his father had once hidden supplies. Soren crossed the room slowly. "The false hiding place is beneath the altar." Vaelor looked at him. "And the real one?" Soren pointed toward a cracked stone statue near the rear wall. "My father never trusted holy men, but he trusted stone." Behind the statue, Soren found a narrow opening. Inside waited a leather account book, 2 sealed bottles, and a letter wrapped in dark cloth. Vaelor took the bottles while Dren examined the entrance. One label read Nightthorn. The second read Moonroot Antidote. Soren nearly collapsed with relief. Vaelor opened the antidote and held it to his lips. "Drink." Soren obeyed. The medicine tasted bitter and sharp. For several moments, nothing happened. Then the burning in his arm began to fade. The black line stopped near his shoulder and slowly retreated. Vaelor closed his eyes. Only then did Soren understand how frightened he had been. "I told you I would survive." Vaelor looked at him. "You also told me you were fine while poison reached your heart." "I was trying to keep you calm." "You are very bad at it." Soren smiled weakly. Dren opened the account book. His expression changed as he read. "This contains payment records, names, shipments, and royal officials." Vaelor took the book. Lord Harvin's name appeared dozens of times. So did the archive master. The final pages listed the medicine used on Vaelor since he was 16. Beneath them was another name. Queen Aloan Thorn. Soren looked toward the wrapped letter. Vaelor opened it carefully. The handwriting belonged to his mother. "Vaelor, if you are reading this, then I failed to remove the men surrounding the throne. House Varen has been weakening the crown through medicine, debt, and fear. I discovered their plan too late. Soren Hale's father helped me collect evidence. He agreed to protect the records if I could no longer do so. Trust the person who carries his blood. His scent may be the only protection against what they have done to you." Vaelor stopped reading. Soren stared at the letter. His father had not been an accidental victim. He had been protecting the queen's evidence. Vaelor folded the page with trembling hands. "My mother knew about your family. And my father knew about your illness." The meaning settled between them. Their meeting had felt impossible. It had not been an accident. A sound came from outside. Horses. Dren drew his sword. They found us. Vaelor handed the account book to Soren. Stay behind the altar. No. Soren. We finish this together. The chapel doors burst open. Lord Harvin entered with 6 armed men. He wore no mask now. His calm expression was almost worse. You should have accepted the warning, he said. Vaelor stepped forward. You poisoned your king. Harvin smiled. We made you easier to govern. You murdered Soren's father. He chose the wrong side. Soren held up the account book. And now everyone will know. Harvin's smile disappeared. He raised his sword. The fight ended quickly. Dren's surviving guards attacked from both sides, while Vaelor drove Harvin back toward the altar. Harvin fought desperately, but fear had made him careless. Vaelor disarmed him and forced him to his knees. Kill me, Harvin said. The council will call you unstable again. Vaelor looked toward Soren. Soren understood the choice. Revenge would feel satisfying. Justice would destroy Harvin more completely. Take him alive, Soren said. Vaelor lowered his sword. You heard him. By sunset, they returned to Thornmere Palace with Harvin in chains, and the account book in Dren's possession. The arrests lasted for weeks. House Varen's trade network collapsed. The archive master confessed. Every official connected to the poisoning was removed from power. Vaelor's condition slowly disappeared after Dr. Marrow ended the old treatment. But one thing did not change. The king still slept better when Soren remained near him. One evening, Soren stood beside the royal balcony, watching spring replace the last of the snow. My position in the laundry has probably been filled, he said. Vaelor approached from behind. You are not returning to the laundry. Then where do I belong? Vaelor placed a hand over Soren's. Beside me. Soren looked at him. As your protected servant? No. As your physician? No. Vaelor moved closer. As the only man I trust with my life. Soren smiled. That sounds like a dangerous position. It is permanent. For years, no Omega had been allowed near the Alpha King. Now the palace learned a new rule. Wherever King Vaelor went, Soren walked beside him. And when Soren fell asleep against the king's chest, no guard dared wake him. Not because they feared Vaelor's anger, but because everyone finally understood that the king had found the one person who did not weaken him. He had found the one person who made him whole. End of Part 8. And that is the end of Vaelor and Soren's story. A king who believed he had to face everything alone finally found the one person who could stand beside him without fear. Soren entered the palace hiding his true identity, but he became the only man Vaelor trusted with his heart, his life, and his future. Did you enjoy their story? Then please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next BL story. And do not forget to leave a comment below. Would you have trusted Vaelor after learning the truth, or would you have left the palace before it was too late? Thank you so much for watching until the end. See you in the next story.